All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the interview of the year. That's right. We have Mr. Scott Davis here from Myth of Logic. He
Hello.
brought out a fantastic album called The Memory of After, and we are going to chat to him about that today. And I can't wait, Scott. I mean, this was a fantastic piece of art that you gave to us all.
Well, I
And
appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Somebody drew on this one.
Yeah. Some moron drew on that one. I can send you a clean one if you like.
No.
No,
I like it.
that'll be worth a lot of money someday.
Let's
So,
hope.
Scott, what I want to ask you about first and foremost about this album is what is it like making music in this day and age for you?
Well, for me, it's kind. It has. Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, it's got many facets to it. Um, right now, as you're aware of, this is my fourth album, basically in 3 years. And the way I'm describing it right now is as long as the water's on, I'm going to keep washing my hands. The music is still coming. So on that level, I'm kind of able to isolate my thought process. But when I do look at artists, like Emerald City Council and Orion and Ghost the Machine and all these other bands that are really struggling to try and find their audience and try and make enough. They just want to make enough money to keep making music. So that troubles me. It doesn't necessarily color how I write music, but it's certainly, you would love, I would love for Myth of Logic to pay for itself. In other words, the records, I don't need to make a fortune at this because the music is its own reward. I would
Yeah.
do this. Yeah, I would do. And I'm sure Cody agrees with me there. The,
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the creation, I make these records because I want to hear them. That's what I've told several interviewers over the last year or so. I want to hear them. And I do listen to them on a fairly regular basis. But yeah, it's the market today. I feel like there's so many competitions for people's attention span, and something like progressive rock is a hog for your attention. My album is 79 minutes and 45 seconds long. That's a big ask. That's why I've kind of made some digestible chunks that people can dip their toes into, but still, that's a big ask. But you like to think that as human beings, we need that experience of digesting something that's a bit larger than a 40-minute pop record. Not that there's anything wrong with a 40-minute pop record. I got a bunch of them that I love.
Well, sometimes there is.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes.
It's a tricky thing because you don't want to push yourself on people too much, but you have to promote in order to at least get their attention and get on their radar.
Yep.
I've had two interviewers recently ask me about this being my first album. They have no idea that there's three before it. And when I reveal that to them, they go, "Whoa, wait a minute, really?" Fortunately, those have been very rare because Claire over at Bad Dog Promotions has done a fantastic job of putting together a package so that those folks all know about that stuff. But if I can have any advice for those people, now since we're talking about Claire, invest some money in PR. That's the best advice I can give you. She opened doors that I never would have been able to knock down. Interviews, exposure, airplay on various sources. It was smart money, and it was surprisingly reasonably priced, to be honest with you. For what she provided me, I feel like she's extremely reasonable in her price. I reached out to a variety of PR firms. Not all of them got back to me. And one of the ones that did wanted to charge an absolutely astronomical fortune, larger than my entire budget.
Oh my
But
gosh.
she was reasonable. She's passionate. She's a musician herself, a very good one. And her band Nine Skies is tremendous.
Oh yeah, I've heard them.
Yeah. And she's passionate. She loves music. She loves prog. She only does prog as far as I know, which makes her very helpful in our marketplace.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to your point, Tara, it's a tricky thing. It really is a tricky thing because there's so many demands on people's attention these days, and not the least of which because, you can download a piece of nearly free software and with a few keystrokes create your own prog album, and a few more keystrokes you can create artwork for it. And I actually have run into people out there on some of the discussion groups that are actively doing that stuff and claiming that it's art.
Yeah.
And claiming that it's, I don't know. My opinions run counter to that assessment. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
There's prefabricated things, and there are things that are created by human hands and human hearts. I don't use AI. I will never use AI. All my artwork was painted by a mad genius, Charlie Roy. Yeah, he did all of that. He did that flower for me, the skeleton flower.
Fabulous.
He's a great artist. Because of you, I've got linked with him, and I got to see a whole bunch of his paintings and stuff that he's shared online, and he really is a great artist. If you guys aren't familiar with Charlie Roy's works, you should go search him up on Facebook, Instagram, all that. He's excellent, and his artwork on all of your albums has been tremendous.
Yeah.
And he's a gentleman too. That he just knocked it out of the park, and that is a good example of my relationship, Charlie, that cover that you're just showing there. And they're all kind of this way. He and I will discuss it for a year. We were having discussions for that artwork 2 months before Light at the End came out. We were already talking about the next one.
Wow.
And right now we're not talking about album 5 because I'm not going to release anything in 2026. I'm gonna slow my brakes a little bit. I'm gonna work on promoting the back catalog. I'm already into the writing of the next record. I know what it's going to be. It's not going to be another concept record. It's going to be thematic. It does have a common theme amongst the songs, but it's not going to be another concept album. I'm wanting to focus a little more. It's more kind of reality grounded than the fantasy stories I've been telling, although there are, of course, elements to that. So
am I going to hear shades of disco on this one?
No. You're going to hear lots of 5s and 7s and 9s and
all right. I like that. I like that, especially the 7s.
Yeah. 7 is a fun one. So Tara, yeah, it's a weird landscape. It really is. And I think people need to understand that if they don't support the artists that they like, use Spotify to audition things and find things that you like. Yeah. And then go seek it out. If you want to listen to it again, this is my personal rule. If I use a streamer to audition something or I hear it on Bandcamp and I stream it once and I want to hear it again, I don't stream it again. I go and buy it, mainly because I want to have it. You never know. Someday the streamers might all go up in smoke. And those of us like you who still have our physical media will still be able to listen to our favorite music. So it's important. Yeah, there you go. It's important for me to have that stuff, but it's also an important way to not just support that artist, but to send a message to that artist. I've got everybody's addresses and phone numbers written down that have ever bought my product, and I appreciate all of them. And from time to time, I try and send out little short, brief messages thanking them, even if they haven't bought in a while, just because if somebody is motivated enough by something I've created to pay out their hard-earned cash for it, that means a lot to me, almost more so than the actual financial gain, as small or as large as it might be. So yeah,
fair enough.
Oh, Scott, I've always thought you're such a sweetheart. You know that.
Oh,
but,
wait till you get to know me better.
Nah, you're a lovely guy. But something that's lost on our generation and people younger than us is the idea of physical media.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean anything to them to sit and experience an album, and like you said, the artwork and everything, it's all part of it, opening it up and seeing what went into this, looking at everything that this has to offer is so important. And it's not free. people to produce this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, even if I'm talking to a seasoned prog fan, I think they need to kind of remember how important it is to invest in physical media.
Totally.
You know, I mean, a lot of them are streaming now as well. And yes, it's convenient for them, whatever. But sorry, I can hear myself going. It's kind of distracting me. But yeah, you know, they need to remember how important it is to invest in something like this, especially now. You know, I know it's hard to ask people to put their hand in their pocket in this day and age because of the state of the economy. Without things like music and art, what is life?
Exactly.
You know? I mean, you can't enjoy life without something like this. And Scott, you know, you do all of this for yourself.
Well, I've been bringing on helpers, and that's gonna increase exponentially as time goes on.
And that's great to hear. But I mean,
you're gonna hear more instruments on the next one. David Pate, who played saxophone on the last album, I'm gonna demand that he play some flute on the next one because he is an outstanding flautist on top of his considerable abilities with tenor sax. I also have an individual in mind for some cello as well as violins. So there's going to be a further expanding. Jerry Outlaw, who played lead guitar on Mercy Paradox, is going to be a little more involved on the next one. He's got some ideas that we've been bouncing back and forth, and I think you're going to see him co-write some stuff as well as play some guitar on things. And of course, Chris Barbosa will definitely be returning. I think I've opened that jar, and it was very satisfying for me. So yeah. But you're right. You know, I up to now, up to this one, I've done most of it by myself. But it's been rewarding to invite people to the party. So I'm sorry I interrupted your point.
No, you're fine. This is about you.
I had something to add on to actually what you were saying.
Go for it.
But is you were mentioning about how the art of physical media is lost on a lot of people. And so is listening on a good sound system. I find something that's crucial to listening to good albums is to at least have a set of speakers. They don't have to be top of the pops Yamaha speakers or whatever, top of the pile, you know, beautiful, whatever, you know, the best speaker company. I'm sure you can Clips, whatever you got, right? It doesn't matter. I find that so many people are so content with just listening to music on this out of the phone speakers these days, and it's not the same as buying as buying a CD and putting it in your CD player and having it booming out of your actual sound system, because and you're the producer of your album, so you'll see kind of where I'm going with this. That's a different angle to sort of have to contend to. And as someone who also produces, because I produce my band Octavium, it's something you kind of think about. And it's like, well, how is this going to sound on different formats, whether it be the CD with the speakers and the proper sound system or someone just listening out of an iPod? What is that sort of angle like for you when you're mixing and producing an album?
Well, I try to listen on as many different situations as possible. And I think to what Tara was saying and what you just said as well, I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of focus in the general population today. There's no focused attention on music the way there once was, because there's so many things that are grabbing people's attention. You know, in my early teens, you had to go to a record store. You had to embrace the power and the majesty of the record store. And you had to go in and you had to maybe get some things on faith. And maybe you had to trust the guy behind the counter to play something cool for you. That's how I discovered Sabotage. Their first album would just come in and the guy behind the counter played it for my friend Bob and I, and we loved it and we both bought it. And that's a relationship. That's a human interaction that's been removed from the listening process. Then, before all that, you had to convince your mom to drive you on a Saturday, and then she has to bring you home. And when you get home, you've got 2, maybe 3 choices you could that were brand new that you just bought, that you had to select one, and you had to open it and put it on the turntable, and you look at the record and you read the credits. Where was it recorded? Who produced it? Who engineered it? People from my generation, particularly musicians, we know that stuff. I know who produced all my favorite records and where they were recorded, and in a lot of cases, who engineered them. And those are important things that new musicians coming up aren't required to know by the general zeitgeist, I guess, if you will. But in my case, I'm very fortunate in that I can just listen to it on a few sources, make it sound the best I can. I usually listen to it here in my studio on my Tenoys.
Yeah.
And then I will listen to it in the car on my absolutely abhorrent CD player in the car. And then I'll listen to it on a smaller set of Tenoys at my workshop, 3 different, and then headphones, of course. Then once it's done, I hand it over to the great Alan Douches at West Side Mastering, and he produces it for the various formats. I get a number of different formats from him. He will master it for iTunes. He masters it for high def streaming, CD quality streaming. I've even got vinyl masters that are specifically geared towards the day where I might get vinyl. That probably won't happen, but I have them.
Please.
Yeah, well,
just for me.
There's a whole bunch of technical reasons why not. It's my strong feeling that I only enjoy vinyl records that were recorded, mixed, and mastered in the analog domain. For me, that's when vinyl really makes a difference. If the album has a digital component anywhere in the line, it doesn't quite make it. That's why things like Hotel California and Night at the Opera and Rumors and the first 2 Boston albums and Damn the Torpedoes, all those great 1970s rock records, they still must be listened to on the original vinyl because they were recorded and mastered in that realm. So with Myth of Logic, I record digitally, I mix digitally, but Alan does master analog. All of the analog, all of the masters he does for me end up digital, but he uses actual analog gear to master with.
Good stuff.
So
you can tell, there's certain records that are brick walled to death,
right?
And even when you get them on vinyl, it's like, oh, this is like the compression on this is just wow, and you see it a lot in current releases.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so I can appreciate that. Even on the CD, this is not that way.
No, that's all Alan. I mean, I always like to say it's not a record till Alan has his way with it. Then it sounds like a record. Although as time goes on, he's having to do more revisions for me. I'm starting to understand his capabilities, and I'm pushing him a little harder than I once did. I think with Surrounded by Ghosts, all of those masters were Rev 1. And I think a couple of the songs on the new one went up to Rev 9 or 10. So I will freely admit to pushing him a little harder. But Alan is a master and a genius. He also mastered the Black Friday single "Circling Back." Have you heard that yet?
Yeah.
He mastered that and also did a special mastering job for the complete Memory of After suite that's 35 minutes. He did a special mastering of that too, separate from the others. But yeah, the different listening situations do enter into it, but I pretty much mix it how I mix it, and Alan spits out the different versions for me, and that's really as far as it goes. I mean, I mix for people to sit in a single spot with focused attention and do critical listening. And like you say, Cody, on good speakers, not it doesn't have to be the best, but at least good enough to hear fine details.
Yeah.
If that's important to you. See, that's the thing. It's becoming less and less important. Now, having said that, a lot of what we're talking about is having a turnaround. Cassettes have started to become obscenely popular amongst the youth of this country for some reason, out of the blue. Both of my nieces who are in their early teens now, they both love vinyl records. That's not all they listen to, but they appreciate vinyl and they appreciate what it does for them. The larger format with the more artwork and, believe me, I would love to do Memory of After on vinyl, if only for the larger format artwork. Maybe I'll release a version of it that includes the the circling back and the 35-minute suite stuffed into a 12-inch.
There you go.
Just so you can see Murphy in that large format. Yeah. But,
I have another question for you, Scott, because
Sure.
what you're saying there about how things were a bit different for you this time around, and with the way like technology has moved forward and social media has moved forward in terms of AI and content being fired at people all the time, what was different for you about the making of this album compared to the others?
Well, the first three each had their own challenges, and those challenges were mostly tied up in the fact that I was trying to swing for the fences. I was trying to tell a long story arc over, almost 4 hours worth of music. And I was suddenly free of those chains. Robin was gone. He was out of the picture, and I had a new story that I wanted to tell. So mentally, it was a little different for me. In terms of technology, I simplified a lot. I bypassed a lot of my outboard gear, and I simplified my signal chains on almost everything. I have a couple of things that I'm going to be probably getting rid of, honestly, a couple preamps and expensive equalizers and such. So I've sort of, this album, I really cut down the amount of gear that I was using to record my signal chains. And I think it allowed me to get a little better clarity overall. I think the album is roomier sounding. I think it has a more open sound compared to the previous records. One of the I'm a mercenary editor when it comes to my own stuff. I've been known to just I'll slave away on a 1-minute section of music for 2 days and then summarily just eject the whole thing. And when I reject something, I don't save it. I delete it. It's gone forever. If it gets away in my process, I just keep going forward and I get it off to the side and it's gone.
Right on.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that obsessively save every little tiny revision, and the only revisions I save are the final versions. There are some exceptions. Earlier on, I was doing demos, but for instance, the Memory of After, there are no demos. What you hear is what I was working off of from the very beginning. So I think there's one exception. One of the shorter songs actually had another version. But for the most part, those are the demos. And
right on.
Yeah, and the technology allows you to do that if you want to. I still don't use a so-called DAW. I don't use a computer-based recording setup. I have my Tascam 32-channel digital recorder that I use. And my primary keyboards are all 30 plus years old. My newest keyboard is a Nord 2 that's probably 1995. This red guy up here.
Right on. Going back a few years.
Yeah. So it's I'm really more concerned with the actual writing more than anything else. Like at my heart, I'm a bass player and singer who writes songs. That's really, if there ever is a Myth of Logic live presentation, and if I ever am actually involved in it, which I seriously doubt, I will be playing bass because that's who I am and where I live, and it's where my heart is. My thoughts on that are that if there was ever enough demand to send out a Myth of Logic band, I would hire a bunch of hot young players who can just play their asses off and send them out on the road and have that be the live presentation. I would end up being the Brian Wilson of Prog or something. Sit at home going crazy and writing beautiful music, hopefully for people to hear, and then sending out somebody else to play it. I played so many shows over so many miles for a long chunk of my earlier years that really doesn't hold any fascination for me. But so yeah, the technology is, when you talk about technology, I mean, you can't help but bring up AI, and it's disturbing. It's impressive, but it's disturbing. I know there are people that are using it as a tool, but I also know for a fact that there are people who are abusing it in lieu of actual human creation. And I don't know. Terminator, The Matrix. Have you people never seen these movies? Those were a warning shot across the bow, I
Yeah.
think. In a bigger sense, I think it's important not to remove humanity from things. We're already becoming more and more divorced from each other, mentally and spiritually. And, people, I don't know. People need to remember that ultimately we have to at least be civil to one another, if nothing else. We have to treat each other. Even if you can't treat someone with respect, you can treat someone with civility. You can respect their basic, human rights enough to, say, I completely disagree with you, but that's okay. We can disagree and still coexist.
Yeah.
So yeah, AI disturbs me, and that, of course, falls under the technology blanket that you were rolling out a minute ago, and so that troubles me. But I will never use it. I will never consciously use it, because at that point, it's not Mythologic anymore. It's not me. It's a machine created device rather than human created devices.
And there's zero originality in AI, because the one thing it can't do is be creative. So it's actively stealing from musicians and artists and everything. Like, that must be scary for you to think about.
Well, yeah, theft in general is scary to think about. If you think about Orion, for instance, he rose a stink over not his last album, but the album before. Within days of its release, was on all the torrent sites, getting downloaded in exchange for money. People were making money, and it's not just file sharing. These people were actually charging money for the high-res files of his album, and he got so upset he claimed at that point, and I'm sure he meant it, that he was not going to make records anymore. Fortunately, he's just like me, can't help himself. And he went ahead and made another album. So, fortunately for the general population, at least for now, we artists who just have that compunction and that obsession, we can't help ourselves. We have to make music. Now, whether the public gets to hear that music is going to be up to the public.
Yes. Okay. All right. So you were just saying that at heart you're a bass player and a singer, and the writing of the music is what means the most to you.
It does. Yeah.
So where did the idea for the concept and the sound for this particular album come from?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I think it's kind of obvious, really, because I tend to just wear my influences on my sleeve. I was really leaning into my Kansas influence, particularly bringing the violin in, but in the style and arrangement of The Memory of After, the two pieces of it. And elsewhere on the album, too, there are some hints of that. I think it's common knowledge amongst anybody who's ever known anything about me. I grew up in Topeka, Kansas, as a musician from the late 70s on through the early 90s is when I was there. When you grow up a musician in that town, first of all, there was a wealth of awesome talent there, and second of all, you grow up in the shadow of that band. It kind of looms over everything, and it gets into your, it's something in the water maybe. So as long as I've been making these albums, I really wanted to more emphasize that part that I really love. The sound of that violin over a driving rock arrangement is just, and particularly when you have somebody like Chris Barbosa. I told him right from the top when I first started talking to him. Jerry Outlaw, a guitar player, gave me Chris's phone number as a guy who might be suitable. And I told Chris right off the bat, I said, I need a guy who thinks he's Robbie Steinhardt. I need that. I need someone who will make me feel it right in here. And he just completely knocked it out of the park. He came in here, and those sessions were some of the most fun during the entire album, because Chris is just a fantastic human being. You should seek him out on Facebook. He drives an Uber and he plays violin. That's his living. He plays for weddings and all kinds of functions and nightclubs in the area. I mean, he plays violin. That's what he does. And he is just, I consider myself very fortunate to have been able to hook up with him, because at just the right time, I had this plan, I had this idea that I really wanted to lean into the Kansas sound more. And at the same time, I was able to find a guy who just gave it to me, you know. He came up with stuff on the spot. If you listen closely at the end of the first section of The Memory of After as it's fading out, if you listen to it on headphones, there are 4 different violin parts just making noises primarily, and they're panning all over in the stereo image. He
All
did
right.
all those were all one take. He said, "I want to try some stuff. Just press record and let me go." And he said, "I've always wanted to record this great noise that I know how to make." And he'd never run into that. Yeah, he had never had a chance to use that. So it was a very rewarding process with him.
Yeah.
He's just a terrific guy. He's a wonderful human to hang out with, as are David and Jerry, and also Tara Jennings, who did the voiceover. They're all just incredibly giving, generous people and very talented. So
Yeah.
You see, and what you just said there is something that's crucial to the human element of music, and it's something that robots cannot contribute or replace. Is that exact what you just said there? Is a human going, I want to try something a little bit different here. Let's see if this works, you know?
That's it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I invite you to put on a good pair of headphones and listen to the end of that track and just listen to what Chris does. Because I put all 4 parts in different portions of the stereo spectrum, and 2 of them have panning delays and they're going all over the place. And the third take is the one where he was actually playing melodies. And I tried to emphasize that, but there's all these crazy little noises he was making. He saw his opportunity and he pounced on it. But you're absolutely right, Cody. AI will never be able to produce something like that is a human musician with a history and a feeling in his heart and his soul, and an inspiration strikes. And he says, "Let me try this." And I said, "Let's do it." And it was awesome.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, Scott, bring us into the concept a little bit and tell us what that means.
Well, The Memory of After is the story of Mercy. And Mercy is the name she gives herself after she comes to Earth. She's born on a faraway alien world that's not really identified, and her race is empathic. They've evolved beyond the need for verbal communications to the point where they don't have speech centers in their brains, and they don't have voice boxes. They don't have the equipment anymore. And she's born, and she comes out of the womb screaming her lungs out. And although the people on her world can still hear, they don't understand why she's making this noise. So the entire civilization is overseen by this group called the architects. They are the designers of everything. They control everything. They control everyone's thoughts and desires and plans and lives, and everyone is tightly controlled. So they take her away from her parents. She's never allowed to know her parents. And they raise her up in secret. And they discover she has other abilities. She has a high degree of strength and agility, and she's also extremely intelligent. She picks up other languages and cultures very easily. So they just allow her to use their resources and sort of, entertain herself and grow her mind as she ages into her teens. So at a certain point, they begin to look around and they notice that their world is sort of turning on them. It's a very cold place. It doesn't have proper seasons for the most part. It's mostly wintertime there for the majority of the time. But they're able to live. Their technology has allowed them to live there. But they discover that their planet is dying. So they have kept aware of other planets in proximity to theirs, and they set their eyes on the Earth quite some time ago, and they decide to use her as a canary in a coal mine. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Police song.
Yeah, exactly. So they send her to Earth just to make sure. I mean, first of all, she can converse. She understands most human languages. She can speak. She can blend in. But not only that, she has the same empathic abilities as they do. So they need to know that their race can survive on Earth with crazy humans running around screaming and yelling and wearing our emotions on their sleeves. They need to know they can survive and live here. So they send her down as a canary in a coal mine, essentially. Before she leaves, they implant a device in the back of her head at the base of her spine called the shadow box. The shadow box is it borders on omnipotence. It can do anything. It can control complex systems. It can control human thought processes and perceptions. It could make her appear, for instance, it could make me look like Robert Redford, and you'd never know the difference. It's that powerful. But it can also control global systems and machinery and all sorts of things. But it has a very, as complex as it is, it has a very simple programming. That programming is keep her alive at all costs. It has the ability to give her oxygen and nourishment and keep her alive no matter what. She could live in the vacuum of space as long as she has the shadow box. So they send her down and she blends in. Now she's probably into what on Earth time would probably be her late 20s, early 30s, and she starts to blend in. She gets a job. She travels a little bit, sees a little bit of the world. She ends up living in the UK somewhere, probably in the Scottish Highlands. She falls in love with that beautiful green countryside, and she falls in love with the people and the planet. She starts to feel like an earthling. She feels like she belongs here. So at a certain point, she had been led to believe that her home world was nonviolent and didn't even have anything such as an army. And one day she gets a message from them saying, the timetable is moved up. We can't wait for humanity to off itself in order for us to come down. Our planet is dying, so we're going to have to speed things up a bit. And as a result, they say we're invading and we're going to enslave the human race. And she is just beside herself. She knows what will happen. They'll invade. We'll fight back. There'll be millions lost on either side of the conflict. And so she takes the very, very drastic measure to assume control of nuclear arsenals all over the world. And she destroys the surface of the earth, killing everybody in the process, thinking that she will die along with them. But what she didn't factor into that is that the shadow box keeps her alive. So she's trapped on this burnt out cinder of earth, and her home planet is going to die. So they're all going to die. And so she is essentially alone in the universe, but she makes this choice out of love. She can't stand to see her adopted world in chains. And she doesn't want her home race to suffer the slings and arrows of what would be a long protracted invasion, and nobody wins. So she basically does away with everybody, and that's the end. A lot of the story was motivated by the fact that some of my favorite conceptual prog albums over the years do not have proper endings. They just kind of run out. And I started with those marching orders when I started writing. Yeah. Everybody dies. That is an ending. That's the end.
We do that with Octavium in each recording session as well.
So that's basically her, the songs tell her story of, Keep a Silent Watch is basically, about her coming to Earth and blending in and assuming her duties. And it moves through the various stages. Machine Language is her lamenting the fact that it seems like machines relate better to each other than humans do, and she's upset by that. And then of course Mercy Paradox and Shadowbox both feature a lot of the dialogue is coming from the Shadowbox. He's describing what's going on with her. There's precious little lyrical content that's really stated from her point of view. It's mostly from his point of view. In my mind, he's male. I don't know why. I call him father and protector at one point. So in my mind, he's male, and he's watching over her, and he comes to view her as his daughter. And but Mercy Paradox, she's made the decision. She's decided what she's going to do, and she feels horrible about it. She, she's not happy about it, but she knows that she has no choice, that is really ultimately the only choice left to her is that. So that in a nutshell, without going on I am working on a what I call a screenplay, which will be more of the story filled in, a little more at length. That'll be available on the website. I've had some offers to do some graphic novels for the earlier works, but that stuff just takes so long and it's so expensive. And I don't know. I think it makes more sense to just write novelizations of them.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
in a nutshell, that's Mercy's story.
Now, folks, have you ever heard something so prog in your life? I mean, come on. Like, this guy is capturing everything we love about prog in this album right here. And Scott, finally, to kind of end things off here, I just want to ask you, what does the memory of after mean to you?
Well, there's a couple of things that work there. I like the sound of it, the memory of after. I like the way it kind of rolls off. The original working title was Keep a Silent Watch.
It's so
And when I thought about, I don't just think about the meaning of words, although the meaning is crucial. I like the way it rolls off the tongue, the memory of after. You're thinking about something that happened after it happened, because while it's happening and before an event happens, your thought process is different. It's not so colored by memory. It's colored by things like fear and aggression beforehand. After something happens, it's almost always better and softer, and but essentially for Mercy, her memory of after is tragic and sad. She felt like the mother of the world. She felt like she had to protect us. And she had no other choice. And this is her lamenting all of that things that the position that she was put in. She didn't choose this. She never knew her parents. This was selected for her. This was her mission. And she went against everything that she was told she was supposed to do. So yeah, the memory of after is a memory of tragedy, essentially, as it concerns this story. It's something that I've always been fascinated by, historical figures that make huge, tragic decisions. And I won't say mistakes, because they aren't always mistakes. But sometimes, important. Winston Churchill is a great example. At one point he was disgraced, and he had made some decisions that cost a lot of soldiers their lives, but he came back from that and he became a great man. It was always colored by the memory of after. It was always colored for him by what happened after those tragic events. I won't get into a lot of details because it'll soak up time and people can research it on their own. Churchill was not a perfect man, but he made some big decisions. He made some bold choices in his life. And I'm fascinated by those kinds of figures in history who make those big choices and then have to deal with the consequences in a real way. And it's no more real than Mercy's ending, because she finds herself alone on this burnout husk. The back cover, by the way, is Earth after approximately 1,000 years later, after it's been burnt to a cinder. And that's Mercy looking out of the window at what's there. Everything got burnt to a cinder, but the plants are coming back. The greenery is coming back. The moon is still up there. So, maybe Mercy is looking forward slightly with a little more optimism. But don't you love that painting? I mean, Charlie.
Oh my God, it's
Charlie
stunning.
knocked that out of the park. I mean, he really did. It's, and I'll tell you a little something that I've never told anybody. That was unfinished.
What?
Wow.
That was the first version that he sent me. He hadn't colored her eyes in yet. If you look at her eyes, you can see the star field behind them. And he said, well, I got to do a little more to it. And I saw that and I said, Charlie, don't you dare touch that image. Don't you dare raise another brush to it. It's perfect exactly as it is. That is Mercy.
Yeah.
And then after we talked about it and he looked at it a little more and he goes, yeah, you're right. I didn't even realize it, but you're absolutely right. But it's so haunting, and it frames that story really well. He finished the image at the end of recording. I hadn't finished all the vocals off and some of the bass guitars were yet to be done. But once her face was on it and that was in my head, it just really it inspired me to really lay into the parts and really give it everything because I knew what she looked like. That was
Yes. Yeah.
very helpful. That was very helpful. And that's Charlie.
Yeah.
Mr. Charlie Roy. As far as I can tell, Charlie is a genius.
Yeah.
He is.
Absolutely. I mean, look at this.
Yeah, he's awesome.
This is beautiful.
All of his covers he's done for me have been stunning. I particularly like Pictures from a Previous Dream.
Yeah.
But that one just it just captures exactly, what I was going for. And yeah, anyway.
Nice.
Well, Scott, I just thank you so much for
Thank you guys. Yeah.
This stuff that you create is just incredible. And I think the world would be a much darker place without you in it doing what you do.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I feel that it's highly important that we support you and people that do what you do, I mean, without people carrying that torch of creating beautiful, progressive music, the world would be miserable.
I couldn't agree more. I encourage people, if you don't know what we're talking about, go and check out the Prog Corner. Go and check out Prog Archives, their charts. The Prog Archives charts are a great place to discover things without having it pushed in your face. You can see a description and get a link to buy things and listen to things, and it's all prog in its various states. If you do a little bit of research, there's such a volume of stunning music out there to be discovered. There's the new Ekelin is so good for me. I mean, there are bands who are functioning on a higher level, but Ekelin's still, barely breaking even most of the time. A band that's been around as long as they have and, works as well as they do, anyway, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. If you love prog, support it. If you love something else, support that. We're just talking about musicians in general. Whatever music it is that you find exciting, support it, or it's going to go away.
Yeah, and tell everyone where they can find you and where they can find your albums.
Well, there's a couple of places. You can find the non-signed CDs can be purchased at Laser CD. Ken Golden has it over at Laser CD. You can get the entire catalog at Bandwagon USA. That is that CD and the previous 3 albums that form the Here and There trilogy. All of those can be available from either of those sources, non-signed. If you want high quality, high-res downloads or signed copies, you can get them on the Myth of Logic Bandcamp directly from me. And that pretty much covers where everything's available. Plus, you can stream it anywhere you want to. You can stream it on Spotify. At its heart, I want to plant this seed in people's minds that they should support this stuff. But really, the bottom line is, I'm just happy that people listen. As long as they listen, you have to be happy about that. So
true.
Yeah. And Octavium, new record coming out next year. Go find that too.
First quarter 2026.
The 2 singles are out there streaming too.
Yeah, streaming anywhere you get music from Octavium, you get Anticipate and Peaceful Empire. Just my 2 cents. Thanks for that, Scott.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We're all the progressive rock artists on our level. We all have to look out for each other. We all have to plug each other.
Great.
Yeah.
Magical Project has a new album coming out. Emerald City Council, they have a new record coming out, I think next year. Both of those, well, obviously next year now, but we've all got to look out for each other. I plug my friends as much as possible, and anyone doing this stuff is a friend of mine because we have to look out for each other, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with us today, Scott. I'm delighted I got to ask you all that stuff because I was fascinated.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you making the time. I really do.
Anytime.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone, go out and buy The Memory of After by Myth of Logic. Right now.
Right now.
Okay. Do you want to end it off?
Yeah. Rock on.